Hello and welcome to Front Porch Talk with Valarie U. I want you to imagine that we're sitting on our front porch and you're sitting next to me and I'm telling you a story with a lesson behind it, okay? And today's episode is part 2 of my first birth story. So make sure you listen to part 1 so that you can fully understand part 2. So let's dive in to this episode, okay? And thank you so much for being here with me today. In the future, I'm gonna start sitting outside on the front porch, so it kind of like is a vibe, and it matches the vibe of the podcast title. All right, so let's get into it. It's a very serious, emotional, storytelling. So I'm gonna try my best to say it in the most direct storytelling way. So right here on this phone, if you're watching the YouTube version of the podcast, I'm recording. So this is why I'm holding a phone. I'm recording on this phone and I'm videotaping on the phone here. So let's get into it. So we left off where I opted into having a C-section. So for those of you that don't know exactly what a C-section is, it is a major surgery and it cuts through 7 layers of skin, okay? And you can look it up and see the 7 layers that it cuts through. And essentially what's happening is you're cutting into where the baby is and removing the baby through an incision of the abdomen area where the uterus is, because that's where we carry the babies. And let me just say, there's nothing natural about cutting into a human's body to get a baby out. It's a surgery, and it's not the way that babies are meant to be born into the world. But I understand, and I'm not talking about where there's emergencies. I'm not talking about, people that just choose. There's actually women that choose to have C-sections. They would rather have a C-section. I'm not talking about, women that want to do things like that. I didn't want that for myself. But if you listen to part 1 of this podcast episode, my first birth story, you will see how they kind of set me up to have one. Ultimately, I just gave up my own power and was like, yeah, let's do a C-section type of thing. So it's a very invasive surgery. So I guess what I want to say is there's 2 ways they can do this surgery. They can either do epidural, which I already had an epidural set up, so they just kind of like use that to give me the anesthesia from my waist down. Pretty much you're paralyzed from your waist down. You can't feel anything from your waist down, so you're not able to get up and use the bathroom. You're just laying there for at least like 24 hours after the cesarean. You can't get up. You have a I don't know what exactly it's called, a urethra catheter, where you pee from, because you can't get up. So you just pee into a bag through the catheter, which is not, you don't feel it when they put it on there because the anesthetic already kicked in. But when they take it out, it's very uncomfortable. Okay, so let's just say that. So that's not very pleasant. I definitely did not enjoy that. But I had no choice. If you have a C-section, that is like protocol. That is what they do. So I was out of it, and I'm going to try to see if I can upload some of the photos from my cesarean onto this video. That way you guys can see how out of it I was. My sister was there with me, and she took some videos and pictures of my daughter's birth, her cesarean birth. So I was out of it. And I remember when they took her out, I felt them take her out of my body. And I just like was just like my eyes were open. I was just like, okay. And then I started hearing her cry. And I just started crying. I started tearing up and crying. I'm just like, it was like a relief, like she's out. And you should, like, I get it. Like, I get it because even during my natural births, I was like, the whole purpose of going through the laboring process is to have a natural birth. But this one was different because it was more like I wanted all of this, poking and probing to end. So I started crying. I knew that she was out. And then they have a little curtain in front of me, in front of my face, while I'm laying down on the bed. So I can't see what they're doing. I can only hear. And my sister, I hear my sister saying, she's like, she's beautiful. She's beautiful. And she had like, her nose was like pushed. When I saw her for the first time, her nose was pushed down because she was getting ready to come out when I was trying to give birth to her naturally. She was right there. But because of the epidural, I couldn't push her out because I couldn't feel my muscles, my pelvic muscles to be able to push. So she was just there for a long time in that one position. So her nose got a little smashed. It's fine now. But when she was born and her ear was like flopped forward like this. So I'm just looking at her like they bring her to me. And I'm so out of it. I feel like I'm drugged. My first time meeting my daughter. And we're both drugged because whatever they did to me, she also got hit of it too. So we're both drugged up. Now I'm laughing about it because it's kind of funny, but it's very it's actually very messed up, right? So I'm out of it and I'm looking at her and like I can't even feel like my emotions. And then I remember my sister kind of like putting her near me and I just kind of like try to give her a kiss and she's like crying and crying and crying. And then they take her away. And also let me mention too, they had some like Vaseline looking stuff on her eyes that I didn't consent to. They don't see, the thing is they don't ask you. That's the thing about giving birth in a hospital. If you don't have someone there to advocate for you, like a doula or your own doctor, right? Your doctor's on good terms with you and your doctor knows what you want, actually respects what you want. Because a lot of doctors don't respect what the mothers want. They're like, oh, I know what's best for you. It's like, are you the one that's giving the birth to the baby? Respect what I want, right? This is the kind of mentality women need to go. If you're going to have birth in the hospital, this is the kind of mentality you have to have when you go to the hospital. And you want to be as natural as possible, okay? You don't want them to poke and probe you. Or have your husband or your significant other advocate for you because they're the ones that are not in a very vulnerable state. Because when you're giving birth, you're in a very vulnerable state. You got to focus on giving birth to the baby. You can't be worried about, what's happening around you. You got to trust. That's why the environment that you're giving birth in is so important, okay? So I don't want to keep getting off track. I want to get back to the birth story. So then, she had some Vaseline looking stuff over her eyes. And my baby couldn't even see me. That's why she was crying, because she couldn't even open her eyes and look at her mom for the first time. And then they took her away from me and they stitched me up, actually while they had the baby, while they had the baby by me and like I was meeting my baby for the first time, they were stitching me up. So then my baby, they didn't tell me where my baby went. I don't know what they did with her or what. I don't even know how much time passed. Maybe it was like an hour or something. They take me to this other room. They give me a cup of ice and they tell me to eat the ice. I don't know why, but I just start munching on some ice and I'm just like, I'm out of it. You got to remember, I'm out of it. Mentally, I'm out of it because I have had so much literal drugs pumped into my blood system. And I just gave birth to my baby. I should be feeling the natural love hormone oxytocin at its highest, just like peaking. Like that's the difference between having a cesarean, also the environment, right, that I was in, being all drugged up, not even having my baby with me. I didn't even get to hold my baby. So finally they bring my baby to me and I told them ahead of time that I wanted to breastfeed, right? So I breastfeed my baby for the first time. And then they're like, okay, we're going to take you to finally like the final room that I'm going to be in for the next 2 nights, 2 or 3 nights. I think I stayed at the hospital for 3 nights when you have a cesarean. So they transferred me to that room, but they took my baby away from me again. When they brought my baby back to that final room, she was not taking the breast. And I ended up finding out it's because they gave her formula while she was away from me. And that is such a violation to my motherly rights. Like, that is my baby that I just birthed, not naturally. It doesn't matter. I still brought that baby here through my body. And for you guys, I'm not talking to you guys, but I'm talking to like the hospital staff, for them to have fed my baby formula when I told them not to, totally ruined the beginning of my breastfeeding journey. I still breastfed. I breastfed her for 5 months, but the whole first month of her life, it was hard, but I did not give up. I kept bringing her to the breast. She didn't want it. She would fight. She would scream. She would literally scream. That's how because she didn't want my breast. She wanted the fast moving plastic nipple bottle, the artificial formula nipple bottle. Okay. So I was struggling. I was in the hospital. I was pumping every 3 hours because I was like, I'm going to get my milk flow coming. Like I want to do this. I want to breastfeed my baby. Like, even if she's, I didn't give up on her. I knew I wanted to breastfeed my baby, and I ended up doing it. It took a whole month for her to get her to latch. I remember at home, I was like, first I would try putting her on the breast, and she would just not want it. So then I would just give her the bottle, with the breast milk in it. And yeah, and then after that, we would try again. Next time it was time for a feeding, I would try again. She didn't want to, but one day she latched on, and then that was it, Then I fed her for the next 4 months, exclusively, So it was good. I'm glad that I was able to do that for her, considering that she didn't have a natural birth. So, and you guys probably hear her in the background. We're 12 minutes in, so let's finish this up. So yeah, those 3 nights in the hospital, I was, instead of actually feeding my baby and producing, like, once again, the natural hormone of oxytocin, a pump was the one that was pretty much sucking the milk out of my breast. A pump, an artificial breast pump. And those things are not comfortable. Instead of having my baby doing it, which is how it's supposed to be, just because the hospital didn't honor my wishes of I wanted to exclusively breastfeed my baby. So they ruined not only my birth experience, but they ruined my breastfeeding experience in the beginning as well. And anyway, finally, after like the first day, they're doing like tests on her. They're like, poking her feet, and she's like crying. And I'm like, I feel so helpless. I'm laying down on the bed, and I'm watching this man. He comes in and he pokes my daughter's feet, and she's like crying, and I can't even comfort my baby. They don't even let me hold her while they do it, right? At least she's far away from me. I can't get up because I just had a cesarean, and I'm watching them like do stuff to her, and I can't even get out of the bed, and I just have to hear my baby. Like, so it's not, this is the thing that people need to understand. This is not at all how humans should be coming into the world. So please tune in to my next episode. It's going to be my birth story, which was also in a hospital. But I'm going to tell you the difference when you have the right people, when you are being knowledgeable and actually, advocating for yourself and believing in yourself, how different of an experience it can be for you. Okay. Continue, please. Like, I really want a world where children are being born the right way, because it does make a difference how these children are being born into the world. It's spiritual warfare. Okay. The hospital system, when it comes to birthing women, it's spiritual warfare. It's a sacred ceremony of life Don't let the hospitals take that away from us, okay? There's already a lot of things that have been taken away from women over time. They've already disrupted the peace of the harmony of naturally giving birth. So let's not continue it, okay? This is why I'm making these podcast episodes and telling you guys my story, because I want to encourage and inspire women to own their bodies and own their minds and own their power of being a woman and their natural power to give birth. It's natural, baby. It's natural. Don't let the hospital tell you otherwise. It is not a medical procedure. So, to wrap this up, it was a stressful, me and my daughter were pumped with a lot of drugs during my birth. I was not heard or listened to during the after time. They didn't listen to me about that I wanted to breastfeed my daughter. I remember asking the guy that was poking my daughter for the blood. They do that as part of one of the things that they do. And I was like, is she okay? And he just ignored me. So it's a very vulnerable time, not only while you're giving birth, but I think, my personal opinion, and I think women would agree, I don't know, but this is my personal opinion, the afterbirth part is more difficult than the actual process of giving birth. The after you gave birth to the baby, that couple days, that week, those are the hardest, in my opinion, because your body is just like recovering and you're very vulnerable. You just had a lot of hormones change up on you. So please tune in to my next episode, where I'm going to talk about that little boy's birth. And I want to thank you again for being here with me. And I hope I see you in episode 4. I'm going to name it Arlo's Birth Story. Ta-ta for now.